Calm down and everything will come to you. Do this and the universe will give you everything. You'll be scared. But first, subscribe to the channel and like this video. This might sound strange at first, but the more you try to make everything work out, the more it seems like nothing is cooperating. And it's not a lack of effort. It's an excess of it. Most people are tired not because they do too little, but because they fight too hard against their own lives. You know that feeling? The sensation that you're always running, always trying to adjust something, always waiting for the moment when you can finally breathe in peace. But that moment never comes. And that's the problem. Here's the controversial part. It's not more effort that unlocks results, it's less resistance. While everyone is being taught to run, push, and insist, there's another path, silent, almost invisible, that makes things start coming to you. It seems too easy to be true, I know. But what if, precisely because it seems simple, you never took it seriously? What if the mistake isn't in what you do, but in the internal state from which you do everything? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to understand isn't cheap motivation or empty promises. It's an internal adjustment that changes decisions, relationships, money, opportunities, and even how the world reacts to you. It's not about asking for more, it's about stopping blocking yourself. And when that clicks, the results start to appear in a way that, honestly, is frightening. Why is it that the more you chase after something, the more it seems to slip away? Perhaps you felt this before. The more you try to control everything, the more life slips through your fingers. It's like chasing something that always seems one step ahead, no matter how fast you go. Weird, right? From a young age, we were taught that those who want to win need to fight, insist, and wear themselves out to the limit. But nobody told you the invisible cost of that. Haste creates internal noise, and this noise prevents you from seeing obvious opportunities. When the mind is tense, it may look, but it doesn't see. There's a silent irony here. Calmer people tend to attract more open doors, while more anxious people spend their time pushing open doors. It's not luck, nor privilege. It's an internal state. When you act out of urgency, you communicate to the world, even without words, that something is missing. And the curious thing is that the world responds exactly to that message. Have you noticed how decisions made in desperation almost never work out? Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because you tried from the wrong place. Imagine quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. The solution isn't force, it's pause and direction. Life works similarly. When you slow down internally, something starts to reorganize externally. It's not about stopping acting, it's about stopping acting in panic. It's about exchanging "I need to" now for "I'm ready." Shy. And this adjustment seems small, but it changes everything, because from here an inevitable question arises. If it's not about running faster, then what is it really about? The invisible mistake, confusing effort with alignment. There's a silent mistake almost everyone makes without realizing it, believing that effort and alignment are the same thing. They're not. You can put in a lot of effort and still be completely misaligned inside. It's that state where you do, but feel like nothing flows. It seems like everything requires extra effort, as if you're always swimming against the current. And here's the curious thing. The more you try from that place, the more tired you get, and the fewer results appear. Something's off, and deep down you feel it. Alignment is when your actions match your inner state. Effort without alignment becomes struggle. Have you noticed how some people do less and achieve more? They aren't running faster, they're walking in the right direction. A simple example: when you make important decisions exhausted, anxious, or afraid, you almost always choose poorly. But when you decide from clarity, even a small action generates impact. The world doesn't respond to the quantity of effort, it responds to the quality of the intention behind it. Here's the point almost no one tells you. Alignment comes before action, not after. It's not, I do it so I can feel good later. It's, I adjust internally so I can then act better. This changes everything, from difficult conversations to financial, professional, or emotional choices. When alignment happens, the effort naturally decreases because you stop pushing what isn't meant for you. And at that moment, an interesting, almost uncomfortable tension arises, preparing the ground for something deeper that begins to emerge in the next step. The inner state that changes everything, and almost no one teaches. There's an inner state that completely changes how life responds to you, but it's almost never clearly taught. People talk a lot about positive thinking, visualization, repeating phrases, but they skip the essentials. It's not what you say, it's where it comes from. When there's inner calm, presence, and a quiet sense of confidence, everything starts to fall into place without excessive effort. It seems strange at first, I know, because we've been trained to believe that tension is a sign of commitment. But tension isn't focus, it's noise. This state doesn't arise from trying to control the future, but from the ability to firmly inhabit the present moment. Aligned people don't live disconnected from reality. They live more connected to it. They perceive subtle signs, timing, and opportunities that go unnoticed by those who are always in a rush. A practical example. Have you noticed how good ideas often come to you in the shower, while walking, or before bed? It's not a coincidence. It's when the mind releases the brakes of urgency and allows something greater to organize the pieces. The problem is that remaining in this state requires courage. Courage not to react to everything. Courage not to prove anything all the time. Courage to trust even when there is no external evidence. This is where many people back down because it seems too passive, too easy, and the ego becomes suspicious. But this state doesn't distance you from action, it refines action. And when that happens, one thing begins to become clear. What you feel inside is emitting a constant signal, and this signal begins to shape what reaches you. Anxiety emits scarcity. Calm emits abundance. Anxiety speaks even before you open your mouth. It's in the way you make decisions, in the tone of your messages, in the wrong timing of your actions. When the mind is anxious, everything becomes urgent, everything seems overdue, everything needs to be resolved now. And the detail that almost no one notices is that this haste communicates scarcity. It's as if the body is saying, there isn't enough, even when rationally you know you have it. The funny thing is, the world hears this signal very accurately. Calmness is not passivity, it's inner security. When you act from a place of calmness, your choices become clearer, simpler, and more efficient. A very practical example. Have you noticed how purchases made out of anxiety often lead to regret, while decisions made with clarity rarely need to be corrected later? The same applies to relationships, work, and money. Calmness sends a silent message of abundance. There is time. There is a choice. There is a way. One. That's why calm people seem lucky. Not because they receive more, but because they don't block the flow with fear. Anxiety tries to control the outcome. Calmness allows the process. And when you start to realize this, something changes inside. You understand that you don't need to fight anxiety forcefully, you just need to stop obeying it. This simple internal shift opens up space for a powerful question. If calmness changes what you emit, how do you sustain this state in everyday life without falling into old patterns? How being before having changes daily decisions. There's a silent shift that happens when you stop waiting for things to happen before you start feeling different. It's when you understand that the state comes before the result, not after. Being before having seems counterintuitive, almost crazy, but that's exactly what changes the game. When you wait to have peace before acting calmly, you remain stuck. When you choose to act like someone at peace now, even amidst the chaos, something starts to fall into place around you. This shows up in the small decisions of the day, in the way you respond to a difficult message, in how you handle a delay, in a simple financial choice. Instead of thinking, when I have more, I'll feel secure, the question changes to, how would someone who feels secure handle this now? It can be something simple, like not making important decisions when tired, or taking some time before reacting impulsively. Small choices made from this state build a different identity over time. And here's the most interesting point. When you start to be before have, the weight decreases. You no longer beg for results, nor do you live in function of the next event. You begin to live from a stable center. This doesn't eliminate challenges, but it completely changes your attitude towards them. And when this attitude begins to repeat itself, something even more powerful emerges: the need to sustain this state, even when the old impulse tries to pull you back. The silent discipline of remaining in a certain state. There's a type of discipline that almost no one talks about because it doesn't show on the outside. It's not the discipline of waking up early, or doing more, or constantly demanding more of yourself. It's the discipline of perseverance. Remaining calm when something goes wrong. Remaining centered when someone tries to provoke you. Remaining confident when the results haven't yet appeared. Sounds simple, but it's not easy. This discipline doesn't shout, it doesn't show off, but it's what sustains any real change. In practice, this means learning not to react immediately. It means pausing before responding, breathing before deciding, observing before acting. A real-life example: when something goes wrong, instead of going into desperate fix mode, you ask yourself, what would be the next obvious action if I were calm right now? Often, the answer is simpler than the drama the mind creates. This discipline doesn't require force, it requires presence. The curious thing is that remaining in the right state is less tiring than living in reaction. Reacting drains energy. Remaining still conserves it. But the old pattern doesn't disappear easily. It tests, provokes, pokes, tries to pull you back to the familiar. And that's where many people fall, not for lack of ability, but for lack of emotional consistency. When you realize this, something becomes clear. The real challenge is not creating a new state. It's not abandoning it when everything tries to pull you off center. When the old pattern tries to return, and how not to fall into it. At some point, almost without warning, the old pattern tries to reappear. It doesn't come as a giant problem, but as a subtle thought. This is too easy. Better try harder. You still don't trust me. That's the trick. The old way of living doesn't come back shouting. It comes back whispering. And if you're not paying attention, you respond automatically. It happens. The mind likes the familiar, even when the familiar gets tiring, because the familiar seems safe. Here's something important. The old pattern isn't the enemy. It's a habit. And habits aren't overcome by fighting. They're overcome by replacement. Every time anxiety demands control, you offer presence. Every time fear demands haste, you offer pause. A simple and real example. When the urge to solve everything now arises, try delaying the decision for 24 hours. Most of the time, the problem has already lost its power when you look back at it. It's not about eliminating negative thoughts. That would be naive. It's about not giving them a platform. Thoughts are invitations, not orders. You choose whether or not to sit at the table. And the less attention you give them, the less power they have. This practice changes everything because it begins to reveal something surprising. The more you let the old pattern pass without reacting, the more space opens up for a new way of living. And it is in this space that the world begins to respond differently. The moment when the world begins to respond differently. There comes a point when something subtle yet very real begins to happen. The world seems to respond differently. It's not fireworks. It's not a spectacular miracle. It's small changes that, added together, change everything. Conversations flow better. Opportunities appear without so much effort. People start treating you with more respect. And the most curious thing? You didn't do anything extraordinary. You just showed up different. The change wasn't in the scenery, it was in you. This happens because the environment reacts to what you uphold, not what you promise. When you enter a place of inner peace, situations tend to organize themselves around that peace. A very real example. Have you ever noticed how, when you are centered, conflicts seem to dissolve before they even begin? It's not luck, it's inner coherence. The world responds to clarity with clarity, to firmness with respect, to calm with openness. At this stage, many people find it strange. The mind tries to understand, wants to explain, wants to repeat the formula. But there is no fixed formula. There is consistency of state. And it is precisely here that something even deeper is born. The perception that this is not a passing event, but a new way of living. When you understand this, the inevitable question arises that changes the game completely. What if abundance were not something you achieve, but something you become? Abundance as identity, not as reward. And most people treat abundance as a distant prize, something that needs to be earned after much sacrifice. But here's the most profound shift of all. Abundance is not a reward. It's identity. It doesn't appear at the end of the journey. It begins with how you position yourself now. When you live waiting to deserve it, you continue operating in a state of lack. When you begin to see yourself as someone who already lives in flow, your choices change effortlessly. And that changes everything, even if on the outside it still looks the same. Identity isn't just pretty talk, it's repeated behavior. It's how you manage your time, how you talk to yourself, how you make decisions even when no one is watching. A simple example. Someone who sees themselves as prosperous doesn't accept emotional crumbs, doesn't make important decisions when tired, and doesn't sabotage themselves out of haste. Not because they're better, but because they operate from a different internal pattern. Abundance begins with the right no as much as with the right yes. When you understand this, something falls into place. You realize you're not trying to attract something from the outside. You're simply stopping blocking what's already flowing. Life ceases to be a race and becomes a fine-tuning process. Less force, more direction. Less noise, more clarity. And at that point, the journey doesn't end. It levels up. Because now comes the most important invitation of all. To look inward, to recognize who you are being, and to consciously decide who you choose to support from now on. Now let me ask you a direct question. After all this, are you going to continue living in fight mode? Or are you going to choose to live in alignment mode? Because, from here on out, you already know that it's not about doing more, running faster, or demanding more of yourself. It's about observing where your decisions come from. It's about realizing if you're acting out of fear or confidence. And this choice happens every day, in the small things, in the details that almost no one notices. So it starts simply. Today, observe how you react when something gets out of control. Observe the tone of your thoughts, the rhythm of your decisions, the unnecessary haste that arises. And when you realize you're falling back into an old pattern, don't fight it. Redirect it. Breathe. Return to a state of calm and clarity. Because the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. And when it becomes natural, life begins to respond differently, without forced effort. Now tell me, in what area of your life do you feel you're struggling the most? Money? Relationships? Work? Time? Write it in the comments. Externalizing is the first step to change. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you won't learn to run faster. You'll learn to walk in the right direction, with awareness, clarity, and peace.